Hey guys, welcome to a new movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the ninth film from Quentin Tarantino, which is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is his ninth film as a director. Obviously, Quentin has worked on other projects. He's helped other directors and writers get projects off the ground. He's been a writer himself. Films like True Romance and From Dusk Till Dawn obviously weren't directed by Quentin, but he's got involved with those films. So he's been involved in many other ways. But as far as him as a director goes, making feature-length films, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is considered his ninth feature film. So in this film, you guys, it takes place in 1969 Hollywood. It's about an actor and his stunt double who are kind of slowly not finding work anymore. Rick Dalton is the name of Leo DiCaprio's character, and Cliff Booth, I think, is the name of Brad Pitt's character. But anyway, they're not finding work, and basically, right away, early on in the movie, Leo DiCaprio has a meeting with this famous producer played by Al Pacino. Al Pacino loves all this work that he's been in over the years. And so basically, he's desperate for work. He's almost willing to take almost anything at this rate. And so basically, even though the Al Pacino producer kind of thinks he's washed out and kind of playing the same character all the time and always in Americanized westerns and Americanized stories, he kind of pushes Leo's character to be in more Italian westerns, like more Italian cinema and things like that, since he's really finding a lot of television work lately, but he really wants him to kind of stretch his legs and do more Italian style stories and things like that. So since he's washed up and kind of running out of options and getting older, and his stunt double played by Brad Pitt is also getting older, and he really can't perform those dangerous stunts that he could, a couple of years ago, that basically both men are willing to kind of take almost anything now. And so they land this Western film that's obviously spaghetti Western, kind of in the spirit of like a Sergio Leone, few dollars more, the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of a movie. And while this is going on, and while work is kind of picking up for these two men again, there's this really bad cult that's starting to start up in Los Angeles and Hollywood called the Manson Cult, which was a real cult in the late 60s and early 70s. And so basically through this business, through kind of just naturally picking up a hitchhiker for a ride one day from this stunt double played by Brad Pitt, they kind of get involved in this business that they were never really invited to be involved with. Obviously, this cult wants things done their way. They do these really horrible crimes after they make love with each other and things like that. So basically, through a series of events, both this actor and stunt double come across the Manson cult again, and since they got involved with them in such a bad way before, but this incident, the Manson cult kind of views this as an opportunity to get revenge on these two guys again, and so a series of events happen that I can't spoil, where the Manson cult and this actor and his stunt double really get into dangerous waters with both sides of this territory of the actor's stunt double and the Manson cult. So overall, guys, I enjoyed this film a lot. I really like, for the most part, I really enjoy a lot of Quentin Tarantino's films. Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill, and Django Unchained are probably the three films that I really like from him the most. There's films that he's also made on top of those that I've also really enjoyed. They're not quite all-time favorites. Like, I enjoyed Jackie Brown, I enjoyed Death Proof, and I kind of enjoyed The Hateful Eight. I kind of had a lot of problems with that movie, but for the most part, I've enjoyed a lot of Quentin Tarantino's films. I think he's a very talented director. I like how he tells stories in different ways. He's trying to always uniquely explain and uniquely explore something that other directors maybe not want to explore. He likes to tell his stories in a much different way than other directors like to, and things like that. So there's a lot of things about this guy that I've always really enjoyed over the years, and I was kind of intrigued by this concept of late 60s Hollywood actor and a stunt double kind of not finding work anymore and things like that. So I was really intrigued by this concept of the movie. Obviously there's the whole news of the Manson cult kind of working their way into the story and things like that. So I was just kind of intrigued to see where it goes. And for the most part, I really enjoyed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Well, I'll get into my negatives here in a little bit. But for the most part, really enjoyable movie. I'm going to go over my positives and negatives of why I enjoyed it as much as I did. But I'm also going to go over some things of maybe some things it could have worked on, why it probably isn't going to age as well as like Pulp Fiction or Django Unchained or any of those movies. But a really enjoyable Quentin Tarantino film. Let's talk about why. So, for the most part, I like the look and feel of this movie. I like how it looks like a 60s movie. It's told like a 1960s movie. There's a lot of scenes where characters are just hanging out, explaining their problems or their appreciation for something. This happens a lot in a lot of Tarantino's films, and it happens again here. I really like how it does feel like a 1960s movie, and I think that's something that really is the achievement of this movie, is just the fact that it really feels like this lost film from the 60s that we never got to see until now, and now we get to see it. So really kind of a cool feeling and vibe that Tarantino accomplished with this movie. And for the most part, whenever they're in the movie, and I'll go into detail of things I don't like about this, but for the most part, when they're in the movie, I liked how the Manson cult was handled. I was kind of worried that because this cult did so many terrible things back when they were around, I was kind of worried how that was going to play into the movie and still make it fun and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I like how these girls are kind of free-spirited. They're kind of looking for rides all the time. They're trying to learn more about the community and things like that. But at the same time, when their business is interfered with, or they have somebody on their property that they're not comfortable with, they kind of defend each other and kind of stand up and do teamwork and kind of really let you know when something is bothering them and things like that. So I liked how Tarantino handled this cult, that they were kind of these free-spirited individuals that kind of all loved each other, but they committed these horrible things on the side. So whenever they show up in the movie, I thought they were very enjoyable to watch. I also thought Tarantino's storytelling, once again, was very unique here, whether it is the narrative, whether it is him exploring things that normally aren't explored in film, whether it is kind of that quiet moment before the tension where a character's kind of laughing or explaining or monologuing about something interesting. It's the typical Tarantino unique storytelling isms in this movie that make it so unique. So if you liked all that aspects about Tarantino, he does it again here in this movie. I also like Brad Pitt's role overall in the movie. He's funny, he's enjoyable, he's likable. You respect his support for Leo DiCaprio's character when he's kind of this down-and-out, washed-out actor. I just really enjoyed the role. He was kind of a tough guy, too. He fixes things for you when things are broken around the house and things like that. So I really enjoyed his role in this movie. It was just a lot of fun to see Brad Pitt take on this really fun character. There's also this little girl that shows up in the movie when Leo finds the spaghetti western film to work on, and she was terrific. Normally I see a lot of child actors like Macaulay Culkin and things like that where they're really good and all that kind of stuff, and obviously there's a lot of child actors that really don't feel as trained as maybe others might, but this little girl they found to play this certain character, though, you can tell they probably auditioned hundreds of young girls, and she nailed it. Whenever her and Leo are in a scene, she's able to keep up with Leo and things like that. Her lines are delivered very well. I really enjoyed this character whenever her and Leo kind of sit down and talk about stuff when they're not working on a scene in their movie and things like that. So really enjoyed that actress's performance in this movie. I also just like how Tarantino made this fun hangout movie. It's just these two guys hanging out, finding work. They're kind of down and out. They're kind of exploring things that they don't normally get to explore. They're kind of not as picky as they once were because they're not finding jobs as much as quickly as they once did and things like that. So I like this aspect of kind of hanging out on the set, hanging out outside of the set. Just kind of a more laid-back Tarantino movie. I think that's something that's kind of unique and cool about this film, and what might stand out for this film over time is it's kind of Tarantino's hangout movie. Also, the sets are gorgeous here. There's a lot of scenes that are taking place in downtown Hollywood and Los Angeles in the 60s. Everything looks amazing, whether it's early Taco Bell, early cinema, casinos, all this stuff whenever they're driving by them. It just looks amazing. You can tell they spent a lot of time and money on the sets for this movie. It really does look like downtown Los Angeles / Hollywood of the late 60s. Bruce Lee is, believe it or not, a character in this movie, and a different, obviously an actor is playing Bruce Lee because he's long dead, but I liked how this actor played Bruce Lee. I really kind of bought that this was Bruce Lee back from the dead. He really played him so well. He had his mannerisms, his voice, his fighting style. Believe it or not, this actor is also from Wisconsin. I'm from Wisconsin, so I thought it was kind of cool to see a Wisconsin actor make his way into a Tarantino movie. Really good job with his performance. I really liked how he had the mannerisms and all that stuff correctly from Bruce Lee. Really loved how he played Bruce Lee in this movie. For my negatives, though, I do feel like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is way too long for its own good. I really do believe about 35 minutes could have been trimmed out of this movie, and I think it immediately would have been better and would have been paced better, hopefully. There's just a lot of scenes that really don't need to be here, whether it's just Brad Pitt driving around for no reason or characters hanging out for too long. It's just kind of this long-going joke, and then when the joke ends, they move on to the next scene and stuff like that. There's just certain things that don't add up as well as they should. I thought overall this film was a little too long. I think a good solid 35 minutes should have been trimmed out of this movie. I also thought the overall narrative was really messy in this movie, whether it's the narrator showing up for a little bit and then disappearing for a while and then showing up again, or whether it's kind of the sense of real-time day-to-day execution, all of a sudden this like quick little moments in this year and quick little moments from that year, quick little moments from this year, quick little moments of that month, quick little moments of that month, quick little moments of that hour, quick little moments of that minute. There's just a lot of scenes where it just felt narratively messy. I felt like the narrative could have been a little bit more consistent in this movie. It was just kind of all over the place at certain scenes in this movie. I also thought there wasn't enough of the overall Charles Manson subject matter. Like I said, it was cool to see the cult itself show up when the cult's actually in the movie. But unfortunately, Charles Manson himself is only a character that shows up in like 2 scenes in this movie. So I would say the scene you saw with him in the trailer, maybe one other one that wasn't, that's really all you see of him. So I thought for being this film about this Manson family murders thing, it really wasn't about that. And I also thought there just wasn't enough scenes to kind of warrant the title of a Manson Family Murders movie. So I thought that aspect of the film was kind of disappointing in that regard. I also thought some of the bigger celebrities that show up throughout the movie, you just either kind of forget that they're in the movie after a while, or they just don't get enough to do. Whether it's just Kurt Russell showing up for like 2 or 3 scenes, or Zoe Bell showing up for 1 scene from Death Proof, or Tim Roth showing up for like 1 scene, or the late Luke Perry showing up for 1 scene. So I thought there was all of these big celebrities featured in this movie, which was cool, but not a lot of them get a lot of cool stuff to do in this movie. So I thought that aspect of the film was also very disappointing too. I also thought the overall ending of this film was just a little too random. When you really think about it and go back to kind of how it happened the way it did, it just kind of doesn't piece together as well as it should. I also thought the very last scene in this movie, which I can't spoil here, was just kind of random. It just felt like it wasn't the last scene of the movie. It just kind of felt like this is all we got and goodbye. So it just kind of felt like this random, we're done here, we don't have anywhere else to go with the story, let's just end it right here kind of a feeling. So overall, I'm going to give Once Upon a Time in Hollywood an 8.5 out of 10. Tons of things to love about this movie, of course, but there's also a lot of things about this movie that are also really kind of disappointing, really could have been worked on, really could have been edited better, whether it is that long length that really could have been trimmed down, or the narrative being more consistent, or if you're going to make a Charles Manson movie, you kind of have to have Charles Manson in the movie for more than 2 scenes. If you're going to have big celebrities in your movie, give them more to do than just one little quick little 2-minute scene. And if you're going to end the movie properly, don't just do this random throwaway joke kind of scene. Just end it properly, end it on a good note, end it with a strong statement. And I feel like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at the very end didn't quite do that. But overall, 8.5 out of 10 for me. Really enjoyed the movie. Be sure to check out this film if you're a Quentin Tarantino fan.